Good morning.
Good morning.
My goodness, we had a lot of fun over the last 3 days. Welcome to the 2016 Angels Night Wrap-Up. My name is Charlie Beckham. I'm the Mayor's Group Executive for Neighborhoods, and we just had a lot of fun over the last 3 nights. You're going to hear a lot of good news stories from a lot of people this morning. I'm going to bring the mayor up, who just was an absolutely whirlwind of going east side and west side. EPU is still trying to catch their breath from staying up with him. He was all over the place, and we had a lot of fun out here. And so without further ado, let me bring up Mayor Mike Duggan. Mr. Mayor?
All right. Well, good morning. It was, again, another step forward for the city of Detroit. The days of 800 fires over the Halloween weekend are long behind us. Eric Jones, our fire commissioner, will take you through the details, but it was a typical night in the city. It wasn't any higher than what you normally would have. I want to thank the thousands of volunteers, Detroit 300 that's here today, the district managers, and all the neighborhood groups. We did something a little different this year. We did the traditional patrols the first 2 nights, but last night we shifted the emphasis of our volunteers from patrolling to children's activities. We set up trick-or-treating sites at police stations, at recreation centers, at firehouses, and we sent the volunteers there, and it was remarkable. I hit 8 or 10 of them last night, and the creativity was amazing. You know, how these guys set up these haunted houses, I'm not sure. I was at one of the precincts, I think it was the 10th precinct. They found an old DSR bus that I would have ridden to school in the 1970s, and they turned it into a haunted bus. So the kids would line up and go through the front and be scared and come out the other side. The biggest problem I heard last night was that we kept running out of candy, and I think we kept CVS in business last night with the frequent resupply runs. But all across this city, there were parents and grandparents with children and smiles. And that's what Halloween should be about. And so we did not see any uptick in fires last night when we moved our volunteers from patrols to children's activities. And in the coming months, we're going to have further conversations with our community groups to create even more focus on children's activities for the 3 days next year. I think it was the right thing to do. It was about as enjoyable a night as I've spent. I think I got my picture taken with Batman 17 times last night at the various sites, and I've told a bunch of them were posted on Facebook. But it was a great night. And to take you through the statistics on the results, let me turn it over to Fire Commissioner Eric Jones.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to piggyback on the mayor's comments. I took pictures with Ninja Turtles last night with some awesome costumes. We had multiple fire stations that passed out candies and had trick-or-treat activities. They had to make multiple runs to the store to get candy, bins of candy. It was unbelievable, and they did this out of their own pockets. Some of the stations were candy was provided by the district managers, at least 3 of the fire stations, but the rest of the fire stations, they did this out of their own pocket. It was awesome. The kids were coming up in loads and vans and cars walking up. So let's give the firefighters a round of applause for that. I also want to thank all of the outside entities, Red Cross, DTE, all of our law enforcement partners. It was a wonderful night, a very, very professional operation. And now I'll take you through the boring stats. So we had a total of 59 fires. 22 of those fires were suspicious. Compared to last year, we had 52. 23 were suspicious, so we actually reduced the number of suspicious fires this year. 39 dwellings. 20 occupied, 19 vacant, 5 garage fires, 9 trash fires, 6 vehicle fires, and 6 of these fires were rekindles, meaning that they started and the firefighters returned to extinguish those fires. But last night, to me, was the beginning of the new trend that we're going to concentrate on the children. I did an interview with 950 last week, and one of the things they asked, what is the goal? can we start, my goal in my mind, the best thing to do is to start counting how many children trick or treat versus counting these fires. So thanks to all of the volunteers, thanks to everyone, thank you again. Let's give them a round of applause. Now I'm going to bring up Chief James Craig.
Thank you. And, I'm going to, certainly follow the mayor and fire commissioner, the same testament that, our days of enforcement, that's not the issue. When I look at the last 3 days, and certainly, actually the last 3 years, we've seen a continuing downward trend. But I had a chance to get out to some of the stations, and it was a festival at each station. I also had a chance to visit a couple of haunted houses, one in number 11 and one in the 12th precinct. And for the record, I was not afraid going through that house. Although I will tell you, the 11th precinct, that haunted house was a very interesting haunted house. But that said, it was just a festive environment. Also had a chance to spend some time with some of the volunteers. I didn't realize it. I want to certainly thank the 300 for their continued efforts. But I'm going to get this right. Grown men on bikes. Right. The slow rollers. Yeah. Oh, wow. They were out, and certainly I had a chance to spend a little time with them over at Northwest Activity Center. So, again, I agree with the mayor. This is about, focusing on the children. Let's get away from what happened in 1984 when we had close to 900 fires during a year. And I'm going to give you some brief stats just to show you the downward trend. So, for example, when you look at citations issued, only 9. In fact, last night, none were issued. Of the 9, 2 of them were issued to adults, adult responsibility, and 7 to minors. And compared to last year, we had a total of 11. And the year before that, 28. And then certainly, my first year here, 41. So it's very different. And so I agree, we need to move out of that. Just the other thing that we did, and leading up and throughout the task force, we sex offender bed checks. We conducted 223 of them with our task force. And of that number, 25 of them are in violations, and so we'll be submitting not in custody warrants. So that's pretty much it. Uneventful, focusing on the children is my message, and the mayors and the fire commissioner. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief and Fire Commissioner. You heard the mayor talk about the difference this year. What the fire stations did and police precincts was just absolutely outstanding and fun. Precinct 11, when the chief of police says what you were doing was interesting, you should be looking out. I want to say, though, that I think the highlight of the night was at the 10th precinct, Chief, where my friend Dan Dirks found an old 1965 bus the mayor referred to, and they turned it into a haunted house. And I'm telling you, the kids were 25 and 30 deep up until 8 o'clock last night going through there. Some refused to go through. It was so scary. They were reaching and grabbing people. People were screaming inside of the bus. It was just absolutely outstanding, a great thing to see. Next gentleman I'm going to bring up, this was his first time coordinating Angels Night for us, and he did just an absolutely outstanding job. This is not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. Coordinating all of the city departments, police and fire, the volunteers, the sponsors. He did an outstanding job. So Ray, come on up and talk to us a little bit. Ray Solomon II. Ray, where are you?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So first of all, that bus was the highlight, and there was a bus right next to the bus that just handed out candy. It was a kid right behind me. She told her mommy, "No more buses, no more buses." so it was definitely scary. So patrol numbers, patrol and community groups totaled 6,037 volunteers this year. Absolutely. Volunteers for Halloween activities and in-house support activities were 220 volunteers this year. Abandoned vehicles that were removed, moving up to Angels Night, 269. Top sponsors were McDonald's and Rizzo Services. And just a special thanks to all the city departments. The mayor actually has city departments go out and adopt these police and fire precincts. Recreation always leads the way. So special thank you to them. The community groups that come out every single year, time and time again. And the Department of Neighborhoods. We had our managers are there, the whole coordination. Special thanks to Costco's. We actually picked up candy all over Michigan for this. So just a special thank you. And finally, a thank you to the mayor, for supporting us. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Ray. Great job. We had city council on here, and they, of course, have formal sessions on Tuesday, and I don't think there's a representative here, but let me say that last night at the Emergency Operations Center, Council President Jones was there. I was sitting with her in the main room. She did hear the 10 o'clock count. So they were supportive of us and what we were doing also. This next gentleman is a representative of a group that we've heard about a lot in Detroit. They've been working along with Chief Craig and the police department for a long time. We couldn't have done what we did without these kinds of groups, and we thought it was important for them to come up and really talk about what it means to be a community supporter of what we're doing here. And so let me bring up Inhotep Blue, who's Vice President of Detroit 300. Come on up.
Good morning, everybody. I want to start off by thanking all the community groups that came out. We sent out 3 weeks ago an invitation for everybody to come and play a part and participate as stakeholders in the Angels Night event. What we did was we actually went out and we engaged the community by knocking on doors and asking people not just to adopt a house, but making a commitment to watching the house, not only for these 3 days, but throughout the whole year. So we had a lot of people that came aboard. We had a lot of people that joined in with us. They felt good to be a part of what we were doing with Detroit 300, the law enforcement partners, and our fantastic fire department. Groups like City of Detroit CERT, under the direction of Detroit Homeland Security, were out all 3 nights helping us out. We had grown men on bikes that we were participating with. There were grown ladies on wheels. There was the Montford Point Marines Tactical Survival Unit that were out all 3 nights. So we had a pretty good makeup of the whole city. What we did enjoy was, like they said, get back to the kids. It's been years since we've seen so many children out trick-or-treating, and it's been long and far in between since we gave the sidewalks back to the children. So we can say that we've given the sidewalks back to the children. We've operated as One Detroit, but this effort seemed to be like a Team Detroit. Everybody was on the same page, and I just want to thank everybody that helped. If I forgot to mention anybody, it's because I'm nervous. I don't do this often. But everybody did a fantastic job. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention. When we did the call-out 3 weeks ago, we suggested that the community groups, as well as the community and the little children, we used Family Service Radio, Channel 3, to actually speak to everybody that wanted to talk with Detroit 300 if he was in your neighborhood, sort of an impromptu exercise for preparedness. So we had really good response with that. That was FRS Channel 3. So if you had a little walkie-talkie, all the kids, they had little walkie-talkies, even the grown people were able to communicate with Detroit 300 and the partners that we invited to participate. So I think that's it. Also, Arthur Edge, our board director, do you want to have a word?
No. I just want to thank everyone for doing what they did, because that shows the love for this city. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Let's hear it again for Detroit 300. We really appreciate what they've done. It's really great. Lastly, what I want to do is certainly acknowledge our lead sponsors. You can't do this kind of an effort without getting some contributions from a lot of outside groups, and we certainly got that this year. Mr. Mayor, I'm hoping we don't have to report this to the Financial Review Commission, because it was a lot of money. But for 2 of them, Rizzo Environmental Services, which is now GFL USA, and they're represented by Joe Newman. Is he here by any chance?
Right there.
Joe, thank you very much. $10,000 check. We really appreciate it. Joe's the Director of Government Affairs and Public Relations. And secondly, the McDonald's owners, who are consistent sponsors for us and help us out a little bit. And they don't have a representative here this morning, but we really appreciate what they've done. So again, thank you to our major sponsors, Rizzo and McDonald's. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor to kind of wrap up. Mr. Mayor?
Any questions?
Taking a look at that, focusing on the kids so much on Halloween night might make it hard to attract more fires?
You know, it wasn't an issue. So as somebody mentioned earlier, we had the city department heads all basically assigned to the various firehouses, police stations, and rec centers last night. Denise Starr, our HR director, I showed up. She was dressed as a witch at one of the firehouses. She assured me that she picked the costume herself. The fire department didn't choose what to outfit her in. But it was great. And if anything, I think we actually saw a decrease the last night's fires from a year ago. And I think we're to the point now where there is so much pride in this city and people watching out in their own neighborhoods that I think we're moving to a point where we're going to put less emphasis on driving around. But when I saw the reaction of the children to the various haunted houses, I really came away last night saying, next year I want us to do more of this, create more time for children's activities. And as I've talked to the groups the last couple of days about that, I think there is a real desire to head in that direction.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of numbers for a moment. 6,000 volunteers is what we're garnering. That number compared to years past, and also the number of homes that have been demolished in that time, that has to have had an impact.
There's no doubt. The 6,000 is comparable to what we've had. We've had just enormous support in this community for this 3-day effort in past years. But to imagine 6,000 people getting out, and if you were out particularly on the 31st, on the 30th, the night of the 30th, there were flashing yellow lights everywhere in this town. People were being very diligent. There's no doubt the demolitions have had a huge effect. If you look at just building fires, forget Angels Night, but building fires, we averaged about 90 building fires a week 2 years ago. We averaged about 75 a week. Last year, we're down to about 60 a week this year. And there's no question that the demolitions are having a huge effect. There are far fewer targets of opportunity. We take down another 10,000 vacant houses in the next 2 years, that will come down. The other thing, though, that happened that I think is affecting this is we've created a new joint arson task force about 2 years ago between the police and the fire department, and they now actually sit together. And the number of arson prosecutions the last couple of years has increased several-fold. And so arson is now something that gets investigated very intensely in this town, whereas 2 years ago, maybe it wasn't. And I think that has changed individuals' behavior. And I think a combination of all those things, they're just, I did not see a fire this weekend. 2 years ago, I got a chance to see a few of them. So it just tells you I didn't see trucks going by me with sirens. I had somebody who lived next to a firehouse that said they only heard the engines go out one time in 3 days, and she was telling me about past years when it seemed like it was every couple of hours. So we're making progress in the city. We know we have a ways to go, but anybody who got a chance to see the children's smiles yesterday know the city's going in the right direction.
What sparked that change in the last night this year?
We had last year, I think as you all know, not only the fewest fires in our records, but we were 50% below the next lowest year. And so we really felt like we've broken the back of this. And so we debated back and forth, do we completely go away from patrols and declare victory, or do we transition? And we decided to do 2 days of patrol and the third day with the emphasis on the children to see what happened. If fires had spiked Halloween night, we would have said, okay, we got to go back to what we were doing. But in fact, just the opposite happened. So it was a way of testing it 1 night out of 3. We were really pleased with the results, and we're going to talk through together as a community. Do we go to 2 nights out of 3, 3 nights out of 3 next year with children's activities? We're going to work that through together.
How reduced were those patrols in the last night?
I don't know what the exact numbers were, but I know there were a lot fewer out. So, what's that? I would say about 50%. They're saying about 50% level last on Halloween night.
Of those 59 fires, how many of them were called in by volunteers?
Yeah, I don't. Eric, do you know the answer to that?
No, I don't. I don't have the data on how many volunteers called it in. We were sitting at the EOC. Most of our calls came through 911, and we handled them from there.
There used to be a real push nationwide to have kids candy checked day after Halloween. Are we still doing that?
I don't like to, the media has been so supportive of us, but those stories about razor blades and apples were nonsense. They got spread as urban legends. So, I think, like so many things, the fear was out of proportion. But no, I don't know that there's been a particularly intense effort on that, and I haven't heard any reports of any problem with that.
No, that's why it was important coming from the fire.
But you guys go back and look that up. The story about the kid with the razor blade, that was never true. But when I was a kid, I heard it all the time. So parents are cutting up our apples, Well, I didn't want the apple anyway, so I didn't really buy it. But I don't know how many of you as kids, when your parents said, don't eat any candy till you get home, and I check it, how many of the kids actually listened. Any other questions?
Yeah, one for the chief. Chief, is there any correlation in reduced crime with the fires going down as well over the Halloween period?
I think that the correlation is simply the city's turning around. As the mayor pointed out, we still have work to do. We're seeing a steady decline, 3-year trend of downward overall violence crime, overall Part 1 crime. So yes, crime is going down, but that's city's turning around. Different decisions. We talk about our Green Light project. I mean, when you look at a 50% reduction in violence at the locations that are green light, and that's just one of many. You got our neighborhood police officers that are deployed throughout the city. Thank you. Thank you. I got to tell you, every time I mention NPO or neighborhood police officers, we're really excited. And I just want to thank my command team and the NPOs across this city who really played a key role in making the stations locations where festivities were taking place.
So there was no, it was typical crime night, typical night?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
All right, thank you
Okay,
all very much.
thank you.